I sit with them and I say, why would you think so low? What are you thinking? You know, as a man and a woman thinketh, so are you. So here's what you should be thinking. You're none of those. You're the director of love. That's a whole different title. Everybody, come on. I want to hear everybody just say, I'm the director of love.
I'm the director of love.
Director of love.
That's exactly right. And so one of my favorite guys back in the day was Barry White. He was one of these singers who when he would sing, he had this low voice, and we would get everybody to do it in our thing, and we'd say, I'm the director of love. And so everyone, we're going to hear that again. I'm the director of what?
Love.
So listen, so if you're when you figure out who you are and whose you are and the path you're called, everything changes. People no longer see you in the same light of somebody who's wanting the stuff, needing stuff, doing all this. The director of love kind of invokes a calling. It's a person who, when they walk in the room, they energize people. They see it because it's not about you, it's about them. And how you greet them, how you talk to them, they feel it. You know that each of you has a personal environment. It hits people like 30 feet and it invisibly transmits to them, okay, something fantastic. Or it could, at this point, if you are allowing just the environment to run and you're not reading, you're not listening to something that's positive, you're not thinking about what God thinks about you, you're not thinking about the opportunities that are ahead. Every single trouble that someone has an opportunity for you to inspire them. It's an opportunity for you to energize them. And anything that great has ever happened to you has happened in 5 minutes or less. This is such a fantastic thing. I think of so many things. So let me just remind you. So when I play Scott Drew, let me tell you a basketball story since we're just sitting talking about something. This is really good. When I play Scott Drew, that was after a murder on the team. So there was no chance of anything. And I had to talk Scott Drew into leaving Valparaiso to take on a team where there's no players. I mean, they have nothing. They got a few that are stuck, and then they're like going out into intramural areas and trying to get people, and they're trying to talk people internationally who don't know anything about Waco at the time and all the situations. And he was just unbelievable. And so I really learned something from Scott in those days, and I want to tell you the story and remind you of it so that it can get into this thought for you. It's fantastic. Scott was playing Texas one day, and Texas just loved the fact that they could just whoop up on Baylor. They just loved it. They're not doing that very much anymore, but they loved it then. And so in this time, the game is in the last 2 minutes of the game, and they're losing by 60-some points. It's just a romp. And so Scott immediately, boom, timeout. Now I'm sitting right behind the bench, okay, in the first row, and I'm watching. It's so fabulous for me to see you. I have 3 daughters, and I got 3 grandkids, and I'm constantly spending time seeding them about really who they are. To understand that in times of trouble, this is the difference, is I can really see who you are and where you can go in life based on this value that you have. And you might not be able to see it today because we're going to talk about things in really looking at what you can't see. But Scott immediately called timeout, and he looks at everybody and he goes, okay, here's what we're going to do. The game begins now. There's only 2 minutes left. You're down by 68. The game begins now. If we can win the next 2 minutes, we don't have practice tomorrow. You're all going to get a day off. You're going to get to rest. We're going to be after it. It's going to be so exciting. And you can just we're going to celebrate you to the highest level. But listen, they're not going to expect us at this point to do anything else but just mope and get our head down and just say, hey, gee, the pandemic's here. Nothing's good. I got 2 minutes. Why should I be positive? Why should I do anything? Well, because, dang it, you were called to greatness. Each and every one of you on this line right now is, you do one thing better than anybody in the whole world. You do one thing that has been planted in you, and you're not in competition with anybody else. I just got to inspire you to be who you're supposed to be, because that moment, that 2-minute moment could be later today. And then everything's going to change off of this moment if you would all of a sudden jump up and be who you are. But I have to get your head up and I got to get you ready. So he turns to him and he says, now listen, I need you to dive for the ball. I need you to do everything. Okay? So listen, day off tomorrow. Boom. Boom, they go out. I mean, you would never, it was like fighting for balls, diving in this, and the crowd, and the crowd's like going, what in the heck? What's going on? And so all the Baylor crowd is starting to get very excited, and they're starting to cheer. And so it comes down to one last shot at the last second, and the Baylor guy goes out to the very back, boom, up, swish, and they win. Now, I can tell you that you already lost by 60-some points. And they're going crazy, and everybody doing it. The team's coming together. Everyone's jumping and excited. And now they're running through, high-fiving the other team while they lost. And that was the beginning. Everything changed. They just knew. And so I'm trying to remind you that, that there's something happening here. You can't control some things. I can't control the fact yet that it's going to take a couple years for me to get to this point. I can't control the fact of the rules of the governor. I can't control the fact of some things, because there are some things that happen that are bad around you, etc. But here's what I want you to think about. What if you can control more of what you can't see than what you can? And if you really understood what I'm talking about, it would not only change your day for the better, but it would change your entire life going forward. So listen, you don't get to control your moms and dads, and you'll never get a chance to control your mate. You know what you get to control? You get to control your energy, your love, your time. Energy is what happens. The energy between two people is what wins interviews. When you come into my meeting and you all of a sudden are psyched and up and positive, and you've researched me and you know everything about what's going on, what do you do with people like that? I don't know. I hire them. I jump up and say, I give you great references. What does your parents do when you're like psyched and positive and want to help around? What do you do when you're friends and they say, hey, can you help me for a second? I want to talk about this. Yes. I don't know. These are things that you get to do. Energy is something so fantastic. Zig Ziglar used to talk about this energy, and he used to fire people up. It's the passion that wins the day. It's your love of something. The difference between transactional people, which are one-dimensional, and people who are transformational people, is one, the transformational people are people who are active and alive, and they got hopes and dreams, and they understand that they were created to do something great, and they're expecting it. They know it could come in any moment. Transactional people are just one-dimensional. They're only thinking about, hey, it's not going good, this isn't going to happen, it's going to affect me, and they start to become scarcity thinkers. They don't become abundance thinkers. And scarcity thinker is, hey, I wonder how this affects me. I wonder if all of a sudden I'm not going to get to do this. Listen, anything that's been taken from you from this moment in your high school end or your first couple years of doing something in your professional career, these are just moments and opportunities for you to all of a sudden now say, hey, listen, I can beat that. Yeah, I wish that would have occurred, but listen, God promises this, that in this world you're going to have trouble. How much trouble? Buttloads. It's just never going to stop. I mean, but his next line was so telling. Be of good cheer. How could you be of good cheer? I mean, Tom Ziglar's line, his favorite is like, count it all joy when you come into trials and temptations. Why? Because it's an opportunity for you to shine. When you see a guy like Tom Brady, he goes out in the game, they're all of a sudden, he's getting trampled, the guys are over him, the other linemen are like, just thinking this is the greatest day, they're laughing at him. And then he goes up, he stand up and look at his offensive lineman and say, could you just block someone? No. What does he do? He just gets up, walks over to the side, looks at some sheets, and he waits till like a minute 40. And then you know what he's going to do? He's going to come out and beat you. He's going to slowly dissect everything you do because he's expecting it. Other people, you know, they're just not doing it. Staying positive is about you seeding and having, like, on your phone, your go-to song. You got your go-to song? I mean, I got to have go-to songs that all of a sudden can do it, that remind me and renew my mind and open me up. What's your favorite quotes? What do you like to listen to? Dang, I can get on like Sirius radio as I'm driving in my truck coming over to my office, and I can get in my truck and I'm going to listen to like 3 minutes of Joel Osteen. Now, Joel Osteen has more in 3 minutes than most people have in 10 hours. I mean, he has more quotes and more stories. I don't know how the guy does it. And so I can't like do hours of Joel Osteen. I just want 3 minutes. And it just sets a tone. And it just reminds me that today, you know, I love Mr. Rogers, you know, and he said this, that if you only knew how important you were to the people around you, if you only knew the impact of what you could do, you leave a gift with each person you meet, every single person. The question is it going to be positive or negative? Are you going to leave your gift of joy and inspiration and that, hey, we're going to get through this? And I mean, when I wrote The Power of Who, I would have said just called it The Power of Friendship, except we have like 5,000 people, like acquaintances that are supposedly our friends. It's all crap. And the answer is you've got specific people that you were given in your life, and your job when you're positive is, if you're a Zig Ziglar kind of person, you are out reaching out to other people, because the more you give, the more you get. And so it's just fantastic. That's kind of like an opener for our first question on just that. I mean, I got to tell you, I'm psyched already in my day. And so why? I get to be with you.
Isaiah, you got a question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I do. So you're talking about how we can, take this hope that we find and give it to others. And you're talking about, coming from that point of energy. What are some like specific tactics we can use to put that into practice in our day-to-day lives?
Well, first is like, if who you are initially, just first, if who you are is what you have, and what you have is taken from you, then who are you? And, and so I'm thinking that if I'm going to do some specific things that are going to make a difference in people's lives, then the answer is there's some things you just can't take from me. You can't take my integrity. The only way I can give it away is just by just falling down and doing stupid stuff. And so my dad, when I would go out, when I was your age, I'd go out on a Friday or Saturday night. My dad would look at me. The last thing he'd always say to me is, "So listen, I've spent a lot of time on the Beaudine name. I don't want you to mess it up tonight." You gotta have a code of ethics that you decide. And that's why you make a list. Your dreams, each of you should have a journal about what it is that you want in life, what it is. That's the whole reason I wrote the book, Two Chairs, one for you, one for God, you sit and talk, is that you'd sit across from someone and you're talking, not looking, saying, hey, I need a position of power and money, because hey, you're already the son of the king, the daughter of the king. What in the heck can you have more than that? You already have power. You're not looking at from someone else external to give you something. You already have it bubbling up, and you just have to stir it up every day. And so one of the things I think you do is that it's like at night. So tonight you're all of a sudden you're waking up, you're feeling fearful, you got something, you're anxious, you're worried. I keep a little thing on the side of my bed and I write down anything that I'm worried about. Or I woke up and I had something and I start to write it immediately down. And then I say, hey, so God, is this something I'm supposed to be up and you and I want to talk about for 5 minutes? Go, I don't care. Or, hey, no, he goes, no, I just wanted you to write it down. We'll talk about that tomorrow. The answer is no. Don't worry about that. That's a waste. And the answer saying is, yeah, hey, I wanted you to put down that thing that's on your mind. Let's talk. And so one of the problems is we don't have journals. We're not journaling our success. We're not journaling our 5-minute successes. We're not journaling down and saying, hey, this is some of the things I'd really like to do. And so I'm trying to look at aspects. So, 67% of people today over the age of 23 never read another book cover to cover. Seriously. Readers are leaders. So I used to think people who wrote books were trying to schmooze me into reading their books so they could become rich. Then I read all their books. I found out they were already rich. And they were trying to give me the secret that they had, and you had to go find it. It's like in a talk. If I give a talk to all of you, each of you are going to come away with 5 minutes totally different than the other. It's so cool. It's so fantastic. And so there's something that in everything you're doing, that there's one thing that you got to do to get it. And when it all first starts with this thought: people matter most. Our heart knows it. God taught us, and yet we forgot. And so what would that mean? Well, it starts, I used to say to God, I said, hey, listen, I need to increase my who, the people I know, so I could all of a sudden do this. And that's how people get into networking, which is not working. And it's going out and a bunch of people you don't know, and you're spending a bunch of time doing everything, trying to get something. You're really not trying to give anything. You're just trying to meet more people so you can position. And all of a sudden it becomes, hey, the power of Mr. Beaudine, the power of this person, I'm going to go get them. If I can be around a bunch of influencers, I could get what I really want. And that just doesn't work. The issue is you have something. You can all of a sudden inspire me. You could stop and say, hey, I'm sitting and looking, and I could be a merchant of hope today for one of my friends. So the way I like to do this, and one of my practice things, is we all do the text message game. Now, some people have played the text message game with me, and others haven't. So I want everyone to write down these 3 questions. So you think about, who's your best friend? And you're going to text this person these 3 lines. And there's 3 simple, it's one text, 3 lines. I'm going to tell you what to say. You cannot change the lines at all, because the lines are strategic. I've done it now with like 800,000 people. It's unbelievable. And the response, this is the coolest game in history. And the reason is that they're going to respond to you. And then we have lines that we say back to them, but it's going to change everything with your relationships. But it also will define early how you view your relationships, because what I'm going to say is somewhat uncomfortable for people to say to their best friend. And then we're going to copy this message. We're going to select all, copy our message. And if I had a bunch of 50-year-olds, they'd have to ask you how to do that. But if we're going to do this, is that these are the 3 lines. Okay, so you ready? Hey, comma, I was just thinking about you. Hey, comma, I was just thinking about you, period. I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate your friendship, period. I love you, period. Hey, comma, I was just thinking about you. I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate your friendship. I love you. Think about these 3 lines. These are the 3 most affirming lines that you could possibly say. Well, in our world, the people, this is really awkward. So like if I say to my friend, I love them, they're going to like hammer me with some sarcasm, because that's the way the world does. Now, it's a little better in the pandemic because we have a whole worldwide timeout that everyone hasn't seen their friends. They're all worried. And so sometimes when I get it, people are sending back, are you okay? Some people are saying something sarcastic. So we only have 3 possible responses. So they're going to respond, and they might come back and say, who is this? Who's got your phone? They might come back to you and make something else. If anybody's early in their career and they're early and they're married, you have a 94% chance that your mate sends back, did you mean this for me? I mean, it's just funny. And then the other side is, but your response is, whatever they say is, no, I meant this for you. No, I meant this for you. And then they come back with another sarcasm, and then there's something you're going to say, no, I meant this for you. I love you. But if they come back and say, hey, back at you, ditto, and they don't say, I love you back, and write it out, I love you back, we're going to send back a text and say, where's the love, ? And we're going to force them to do it. Now, the reason this game is so amazing is that you who are listening to me say this, you already are okay with doing this. You're really willing to do it. But see, our problem is, how far can we go? So one of the things I want to tell you is that at your age now, it hasn't happened yet, but when you get to over the age of 35, men stop adding friends. It's crazy. Women are so much better at this than men. I mean, men are disasters. It's just like embarrassing. And so what happens is men over 60 give up their old friends. Now they got nothing, and they focus just on their family, not because they want to, but just because they're kind of lost. And so right now, we're isolation and loneliness is like extreme. And so the greatest opportunity is to send out this message and then someone say, I can't believe you sent this. I needed it so much, which is an immediate opportunity for you to call them. And if they say, hey, so how are you? And if they say, okay, you go, hey, so what's the matter? And now you have a chance to be a merchant of hope. So we don't get an opportunity. I mean, I had a guy, he sent it to his mom. She has 6 months to live. She's in the hospital. She, oh my gosh, son, I can't believe you sent this. She said, I'm looking out the hospital window and I'm thinking, you just sent this to me. She said, if I could tell you how much I love you from the highest mountain in Switzerland, I love you, echo, echo, echo. And he just sits down and cries. A week later, like on Facebook, he sends me a note and says, my mom passed away today. What if I hadn't sent the text? And then he goes. Then a week later, he sends me a picture in his office of Switzerland, and it says, I love you, son. Echo, echo, echo. You know, I've had people who have bought a gun and were considering to kill themselves, but they sent out a text message to another friend who sent back and said, I'm feeling really dark today. You'd be so shameful of me, of what I'm thinking. Now listen, all our friends, we're all in trouble. We're all flawed. We all need another friend to what? Affirm us and tell us. I did a conference for the governors and 5,000 women, and there were like 5 women and then me. The only reason I was brought was the governor's wife picked me because of the text message. And the next person who's going to speak after me is like a Pulitzer Prize winner. Of course, she should be talking more than me. But there were so many people who came up who wanted to say what their message back of how they were affirmed. What an opportunity that we could take to stop and say to a bunch of friends and people who we haven't. There's so many things, like 70% of men have never had their dad say, I love you. And so this is a chance to get your dad to do it and come in and you say, hey, where's the love? I mean, this is the big shot here. And so you have to, and you thinking, my dad's got a problem with this and he hasn't do it because he doesn't love me. No, it has nothing to do with that. His dad didn't tell him. And his dad before that didn't tell him, and we're going to break the curse. All over the country, you should see our meetings where people just say, oh my gosh, my dad just did this. And you and I, you can't be part of this, or people who are even stepping in and listening on Facebook can't even imagine the opportunity that we have today in this time of trouble. This is the best opportunity. This is the day that we can all of a sudden seed it, just like Scott Drew did. All of a sudden, we're going to win the day. We're not trying to win the future. We're not trying to win something else. We're just by the fact of who you are and whose you are and the path you were called, which is you couldn't even be on this call if you weren't all of a sudden potentially something that was going to have a major impact in the future. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So I'm just thinking it's just wild. So I want you all to be so inspired today, because if you only knew how important you were.
Evan, do you have a question?
Well, thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. It's super cool having somebody in the sports industry. So I was wondering, how can I find and work towards my personal goals during this time of crisis?
Yeah. So I want you to start to think about something wild. So I teach this to head coaches. When I go out and if you were the head coach, if you were like, I just put in like Dave Aranda as the new head coach at Baylor. He formerly was the defensive coordinator for the, LSU. I mean, it was like he was a championship. He throttled Clemson. I'm great friends with Dabo and all these guys, et cetera. And I like to teach head coaches this strategy on how to recruit. Okay? How would you win the home visit? And see, I really believe you and I, with our goals and dreams, okay, have to understand how to win interviews, how to win today, so that we can then all of a sudden be so far ahead of everybody else, okay? And so I want everybody to think of, these are the 4 things that people think about when you walk in and meet them. So if you knew these 4 things, okay, dang, it's like me telling you the test answer before the test. I mean, it's fantastic. And so this is a strategy that's so wild. And then I'm going to show you the opposite of what the world thinks of this strategy. So we have a whole strategy that I'm going to tell you is just wildly successful. And then I'm going to tell you what actually people are doing. It's crazy. So the first thing, And the reason this goes for your goals and dreams, I'll connect it all at the end on why, but follow this, because you're going to have at some point, you're going to want something and you're going to need something. And everyone today, whether they need a loan, whether they need a reference, whether they have to do this, you're going to go to someone, because God created us in a position that you can't get this alone. We need people. And people are bridges to your goals and dreams. And so God gave you these people. That's why I wrote The Power of Who, the people who matter most. And everyone should read that book, because, you know, it's like exploded again. I first wrote it in the initial downturn of 2008 and 9. And so now, you know, then I wrote this. I'm writing a new book now in a pandemic. I'm writing a new book that's going to be wildly good. But okay, so here it is. 4 things. The first thing they think about when you walk in the room: do I know you? Okay, so why are you in my office? Who introduced you to get into my office? And so who that person is a big difference about it. So if like I got in and your dad is my best friend and he introduces you, well, you're like gold, because he's a friend of mine and I trust him. So people who know someone, so, you know, most people, they get a bunch of people to recommend them in. I had I'm doing a search one time for a basketball coach, and Coach K calls me to recommend somebody. And so he calls me and he says, hey, I really love this guy. You need to know this person. And then when he says his name, he mispronounces the guy's name. Well, so that can't be your best friend here. You can't know this guy. And so my only point is he's a fantastic human being, and he wanted to help this guy, but he didn't know him and he just felt needed. That's not the person you want to have introduce you. Now, it's good when Coach K does it, because he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. However, I need you to make sure, if you have one person you know who knows this person well and they already have a relationship, you have an 87% chance of getting the deal done. 87 versus 13. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm going for 87. So the factor is, what this stems to think about your goals and dreams is that there's a bunch of people who are going to be able to help you bridge your goal and dream. And to get there, you need an introduction. And so what you've been taught is that friends and business are taboo. So let me get this correct. We're supposed to work with a bunch of people we don't know and don't trust. No, that's stupid. No, we have to use it. So most people say, I can't ask my mom and dad. I can't use my uncle. This would be like, hey, I shouldn't do that. I should really do this on my own effort. Seriously? What are you, crazy? I mean, they're not trying to do your job. They're just doing an introduction. And the fact that you came from a heritage that was all of a sudden something good, that the person knew, that your dad, your mom was this fantastic person, your uncle, her brother, that would all be a great reference. And you need the intro. Okay? Do I know you? Here's number 2. These are really complex. Do I like you? Okay, so the second question is, do I like you? So if you walked into the meeting and you started to talk about the person who introduced you, and you spend 5 minutes, usually interviews are over in 5 minutes. They've already made a decision. The people are quickly, cognitively coming to a point of how they think about you. And so if you talk about the other person, and so if you ever said, gosh, Bob Beaudine, Mr. Beaudine had introduced me to you, you could probably make fun of me for a long time just because of how crazy I am on this webinar, little Zoom here, because they'd have fun. Oh yeah, he's such a goof. He's so positive. He's this. And so now he automatically starts to like you. You know what percentage you're at now? 94% versus 6. So what people do is, they just send in their resumes. They do mass emails. They hand out business cards like they're mints to a bunch of people they don't know. Do you think that works? I mean, I get 52,000 resumes a year. Dear sir, to whom it may concern, dear recruiter. I've never placed somebody from a resume. Well, then they say, well, why do you ask for them? I don't. They come unsolicited. And so these people are fantastic people. They just don't know the hierarchy of thought. So, do I know you? Do I like you? Then guess what they do? They turn and they say, let's talk about my needs. And the next question is, do you understand my needs? So think about this. People who are out of jobs right now should be thinking about making a list of who they want to go to work for. They should be then and they make a list of 10 companies, 10 jobs. It doesn't matter where. And then they should think of the 10 people they would report to. It's all online. This is all known. Then they should go to their friends, the people they know. You can't go to a bunch of people you don't know. I mean, if you got in an accident today, you're not going to pull out a card from a business person you just met to call them to say, would you help me? I've been in an accident. No, you're going to call your mom and your dad. You're going to call your brother, your sister. You're going to call people you know. You're going to call your best friend. So it's crucial here that, hey, do I know you? Do I like you? And so when I'm in trouble, I've got to understand. Now we're going to get to understand the need. We get to now, I should have done a bunch of homework on this company. I should know everything about the person who's sitting across from me, because I'm not the who, they're the who. This is a big mistake. Again, you're talking about how I'm going to be a person who connects, serves, and loves, and it's not about you. You are the director of love. And when you talk about this, you are the person who knows and does this. And see, when people see people who are this selfless, they see people who are yes people, who make things happen. I mean, people always say, oh, I just don't have time to do that. Listen, time's our enemy, but timing is our best friend. Now, this is a paradox. Time is our enemy. Timing is our best friend. I mean, you got to let that really sink into your head. Time. This is what, oh, I just don't have enough time. I can't get up and spend, I can't read your book 2 chairs. I just don't have time. Seriously? 5 minutes. 5 minutes in the presence of God changes all your best laid plans. What are you, crazy? I mean, so if there's a 1% chance that the guy who created the whole world would talk to you, would you go? Everybody says yes. And I say, where have you been? And then they say to me, hey, so what's he going to say to me? And I said, I didn't write 3 chairs. I wrote 2. It's just you and him. You got to go. So okay. Number 1, hey, do I know you? And if you didn't start there, you're all of a sudden behind. 3 is, do you understand my needs? And then last is, are you the best for me? This is where you get to shine a little bit, because early in your career as high school and early college, what you are selling is personal qualities that transcend the technical. I'm selling you my energy. I'm selling you on my positivity. I'm selling you on the fact that I have come and have been on teams. I've already been in sports. I've already done things that I understand. I help in charities. This is who I am. I like to serve. I like to solve people's problems. I'm a person who, if you give me something, I'm going to work hard at it. And listen, I got lots of time. I'm willing. And so what do you do with people like that? People who connect, serve, and love? I don't know. I hire them. They get promoted. They're the last person who get furloughed in this process. And so, in the hierarchy of thought. So here's the way this other works now. And so I want you to understand, if talent was the reason everyone got jobs, if that was the reason, and a lot of people think that talent, listen, I got to do this based on my talent. If talent was the reason everyone got the job, how would we have Congress and Senate? I mean, I'm just telling you, this is crazy. No, you got to have some who here. You've got to be a person who makes this happen. So here's the way the world works. They don't work on the hierarchy of thought. Do I know you? Do I like you? Do you understand my needs and are you best? They flip it. They do it the other way. And so what you do is you come in and say, I'm the best. And that's what sometimes coaches do. And so haven't you seen me on LinkedIn? I sent you my resume. Didn't you read it? No, I didn't. I got 52,000 other ones, so I didn't read that either. I don't know you. And they go, hey, well, so-and-so said something to me. I saw on your list of LinkedIn people that so-and-so is one of your friends. What are you talking about? I do positive stuff every single day on LinkedIn. I got tons of people liking me and this. I don't know them. But it wouldn't take someone to say that you wouldn't take you 10 minutes to do research to find out someone who knows me. And then you start with people who are known. This world we live in is kind of scary now a little bit in some of that area. And so you start out this. So they come out and say, I'm the best. Like, you wrote your resume. How would I know that? I'd rather have, it's never good to toot your own horn. It's always good for somebody else to sell how great you are. And so the second thing they say is, listen, I understand your needs. Now, any woman would tell you, your mom, your sisters, anybody who's online who's female will immediately tell you that, does a woman let a man understand her needs if she didn't know them? Come on. You don't understand my needs. I mean, I just met you. What's my wife's name? And have you been to my house for a barbecue? This is crazy. I mean, people like to make this out to be like I could just send my resume and I'm waiting like Bob Barker is going to call me and say, come on down and Price is Right. He's retired. He's not calling. This is crazy. So what I suggest is that you take a different viewpoint, because after they say, hey, listen, I'm the best and I understand your needs, they roll in, you're going to like me, and then at some point you're going to get to know me. You think that works? No. So the first thing is, if you want your goals and dreams, here's what Zig Ziglar said about that. If you want your dreams to come true, you have to make other people's dreams come true. Now, one of my best friends is Tom Ziglar. I mean, we have lunch. We talk all the time. I talked to him yesterday. We just sit and inspire each other. I mean, we don't talk about a lot of fluff sometimes. We're like in this, and then I say, hey, so what are you thinking about today? And he goes, I'm creating a new little book. Get out of here. You just wrote another little book? Oh yeah, I'm thinking today on people don't understand how to do Zoom, and they're not really creating relationships. So I'm trying to talk to you like you're all right next to me. And of course you feel it, because the energy that we can have, it doesn't matter. It goes right through wherever technology we have, if you're really genuine and you really care. So you got to care about people, and people know that. They can think, if you want something so bad, what you're going to do is you're going to start doing mortar attacks and sending out everybody who doesn't know everybody, and they're going to try to do it. That's really annoying. Or you're going to want something so bad. And listen, here's what you always want to remember, that dogs and dates and prospective bosses all can smell that. And they ain't going to give it to you. It's just not good. And so you never want to be a person. You want to be a person who carries them and has plans, and they've written it down, and they're talking to God. They know where they're going. They're doing something to help people. And listen, you can't put a light under this bushel. It's going to burn right through that, and everyone's going to know who you are. I'll find you. You cannot actually have to worry about that. You do one thing better than anybody in the world, and I need you to have the type of friends who inspire you to that thought. I mean, I have 3 girls, and they're all different. And one of my daughters went to Baylor and then did that for a little bit and wasn't totally on it. And then my middle daughter went to Mizzou, and she then got her master's at SMU. And then my other one's a Tiger, and she was doing a bunch of stuff with Circuit of America. All 3 of my girls are. I just spent time seeding them about how great they were, no matter what, because you're going to go through ups and downs. And we need somebody, a grandpa, to kind of come in and remind you, no, you're okay. No, you're fantastic. Don't let anyone fool you. No, you're unbelievable. That's not true. I mean, who's talking to you? Every single day we hear this little message, which you got to turn off that negative self-talk. All this stuff, you got to turn on. You got to start filling your mind with who you are and whose you are in the path. And so my oldest daughter is an Instagram influencer, and she has 300,000 people who follow her every single day, and she's just awesome. She sings, she does this, she has all these things. She loves to help people. She does it. My middle daughter is a teacher in Frisco, Texas, and she does, she just kills it. She's she does all of the photography and the broadcast journalism. She does the yearbook, and she's a photographer on the side. My youngest is now in real estate and does it all. And all of them finally are like off dad's thing, and they do really well, and they're all successful. But it's not like I didn't know that was going to be the day, right? And I can tell you with great, great confidence, and I do this for a living. I've done search for 40 years. Is that each of you are going to be ridiculous. You can't even be listening today if all of a sudden you didn't have a future and a hope and prosperous and unbelievable growth.
Amy, you said you had a question. You wanted to jump in?
Yes. Okay. So my question for you is that we've talked a lot about investing in others and what that looks like and how to do that. So my question is, how are we spending, what are some tactical ways to spend intentional time and investing in ourselves and making sure that we're prospering?
Yeah. So each day what I do, I'll tell you what I do. So every day I really love 2 chairs. Now that's me. I'm up every single morning, first thing, before anybody else, before my wife, grab my dog, take it out, get my coffee and sit down. I'm not like reading a devotional while, and vicariously living through somebody else talking to God. I'm going to actually talk to him, and I'm going to tell him all my ridiculous crap and all my problems and all my stuff. I'm going to lay it down. And then I'm going to say, hey, what do you got for me? And so I have a plan to start that says, my first thought is empty Bob, and then start with the fact that says empty Bob, and then, hey, what can I do that could change your life? I mean, I'm into your life. I'm not into my life. And I find the more I focus in on others, the more I'm blessed. So then how would I do that? Well, I got to read, I got to listen, but I really got to have some friends, and I got to have some music, and I find there's so much juice when I help you. So the person who wins the most today is me. I get the most. I mean, the opportunity that I have to inspire you and to do it, even if I had one thing out of all of that I said today, is the one thing that you look and you did, that would be worth it to me. There's a great scene. There's a great scene in the movie The Natural. Okay, so this is a great baseball movie, and it has Robert Redford and Glenn Close, and so he's been fooled a couple times in his life. He was the greatest pitcher, now he's the greatest hitter, and now he might be able to not play in the game. But it wouldn't matter if you know what I'm giving you the cliff notes. And so he's now not going to necessarily get to play in the championship game. And I live in movies for the quote, for the one line. I've done it my whole life. I read books to get their one line. And when I do it, I look at it and did you hear that? I mean, I'm like turning and no, what they say? What the heck, what movie did you watch? Yes, this is the whole thing. The whole movie comes down to this thing. All of a sudden, here he is. It's The Natural, and he turns to, all of a sudden, Glenn Close, which is the woman he was always supposed to be with. It was his destiny. And he says to her, I thought my life was going to be different. A lot of people are saying that right now. They just thought they were going to get through this. They had no idea that this would happen, a pandemic. They just got their first job. Now they're out. It's woe's me. It's raining only on me here in Plano. It's not raining on anybody else. My life is really lousy. And he says, I just thought my life would be different. And she goes, how so? And he says, I thought they were going to say, Roy Hobbs, you're the greatest baseball player of all time. She goes, you're so great now. And then he says, yeah, but, a lot of people have wouldas, couldas, and shouldas. What I'm find is that we got to live in the now. Now, she then says one of the historic lines. And I want you to remember it always. And so, because if you watch the movie and you're not catching this, what I want to tell you is we get like streams of thought that people are doing in books. And if I don't write the book fast enough, someone else in another stream in New Zealand is going to write this book because God's not letting the message go. And he just happened to whisper it to me. And then I just went on fire. And I'm on fire for things that you say. You're going to be an author. I think you are. And so don't think that you're not. And so the answer is everybody. So follow this. She then turns to him and she goes, I got to go. But I'm going to leave you this one thought. And then she says, I think we live two lives. The life we learn with, and then the life we live after that. So now that you know what you know all the stuff that I'm planning in you, it's going to accomplish the spot that I sent it. It's going in. And it's going to seed, and then it's going to bring into this fantastic aspect of a tree that grows bigger than anything else. And your life's going to flourish because you're going to remember back, because anything that you put in, your mind's like a computer. And then God immediately goes, remember what Bob said? You remember what Tom said? You remember that book you read over here? You remember this movie that you did here? No. I think we live two lives, the life we learn with, and then the life we live after that. It doesn't matter what you messed up with. God's not like mad at you. He's not mad you made a mistake. He didn't think this. It's now. What can we do now that this is where we are today? Who could we inspire today? Who could we lift today? Who could we solve the solution for? That's our whole goal in life, is to do it. I believe everybody. So listen, the opposite of depression today is not happiness. That's not the opposite. It's purpose. And when you're not on purpose, so I really believe one of my purposes in life was to be a merchant of hope to you, to my kids, to my wife, to my friends, to my clients. I mean, I don't have any relationship with a client that's different than my friends, because I believe that you should do a job you love with people you love in a place you love, where your family loves it, and you get to do it for all the right reasons. Now, most people, they love the job, they hate the people, love the people, hate the job, love the people, hate the city. They got something wrong. They're dinging. Don't ever do that. The operative word is love. And that's the key in this whole thing.
Bob, on Facebook, Johnny is wanting to know, what was your defining moment in your life that put you on the trajectory of making a significant impact in others?
I think someone first, I say a lot of times there's people who come into your life for a reason and a season, right? And they tell you something and it's impacted. And then all of a sudden, one person believes in you and that changes everything. And everybody should be thinking, who am I going to text message that believed in me that got me here in this room? And so, my dad was one of those guys who just believed in me. And I was lucky. I think I had a mom and a dad who were just amazing. And I think I had that so I could share that in both of my books. When I wrote The Power of Who through the lens of my dad, who was a chemical engineer, he was a Notre Dame graduate. He was a Mensa. He started the executive search industry back in 1967. And so when I was in brand management, I went to SMU, go to brand management. And then I kind of got tired. I was going to go from this job, brand manager of Cocoa to Coffee Mate to Contadina ketchup to, to frozen French fries to this. And then I looked at my dad and when I first joined into search, I was young. And the odds of me, the average age of my business was like 40 something. And so here was the line that we went on. My dad said, I want to tell you this, and this kind of changed my whole perspective in life is, I want to share this with you, Bob. And this is my business play. And then I'll tell you my mom's play to me. My business play, my dad wrote this down. So I'm expecting technical. And he said, I want you to write this down. Make friends. Help your friends in every way possible. Don't be surprised if you do a lot of business with your friends. And so today listen, we don't have, it's very hard to get friends. So I didn't say, listen, Jesus had 12 friends, 3 close, 1 best. Everyone knows who he is. 2,000 years later, he's still signing recruits, still doing deals. It's just, it's just like, we're not talking about a lot of people. If you had one, it's just unbelievable. All we need is you and me. And then what do? We got to go get 3. And so this is pretty exciting. And so that was a defining moment of my business career. A defining moment with my mom is that I just said, hey, listen, Mom, what do you do in times of trouble? What do you do to find your goals and your dreams? And she goes, those are, what do you do? Find your mate. And I said, and she goes, I don't know, Bob, but I know who knows. And so she said, hey, can I ask you 3 questions? And these 3 questions are going to help you then come to the answer. And I said, okay. And she says, now listen, these questions are simple, but they're disruptive. And so she said, are you ready? And I said, sure. And so she said, do you think God knows? And I said, knows what? These questions, these situations for you. And I said, yes. And she goes, well, that's good, because the greatest thing you can do in a time of crisis is to get your mind above the crisis. Of course, the highest thought is God. God doesn't have like 6 telephone lines for 7 billion people. He knows your number. He knows your situation, whether you know it or not. And he's got something he wants to say. So then the second question was, hey, do you think this is too hard for him? I said, no. She says, well, it's too hard for you though. And I go, yeah. And she goes, do you think he has a plan? And I said, yes. And she goes, what is it? I have no idea. And she goes, exactly, 2 chairs. And I go, what? And she goes, you own chairs? I said, yes. And she goes, well, if you made one for him and one for you and you meet him each morning, would you, and there was a 1% chance that he would go, would you go? I said, yes. And so she goes, where you been? And so this was a life-changing thing for me, because I have a lot of people who are really seekers today. They have no idea. They're thinking, come on, Bob, what are you, nut? And, so, if you say that you listen to this negative self-talk all the time, everyone says that's okay. But if you say you talk to God, actually you're schizophrenic. It just becomes funny. But when you're today on a stretcher or in a hospital all by yourself, I don't think anybody's asking for questions on rehab things. They're trying to make sure that they can get some hydroxychloroquine or something or whatever it is that anybody thinks they could do. And they're thinking, hey, help me, God. And so the time that I first found him 40 years ago, and that in all of a sudden this situation, and I talk to him each day, that's been a life-changing thing for me. And it will be for you.
Well, Bob, as we close up, there's one story that you share that really put things in perspective for me about what I needed to expect in life. And I'm going to kind of lead you into it. And that's really the story that you related about Arnold Palmer and the gift that he received.
Yeah.
And I promised a few of these folks that if you didn't tell it, I would prompt you towards that, because that has been one of the more eye-opening stories that you have shared and really put things in perspective for me. So if you wouldn't mind, I see you already know where I'm going with that. So
I had let me set it up. I had a guy who's a friend of mine who was going to go for a big job, but a lot of times when you have a job, you don't want to look for a job, because then you got a job and you don't want to lose the job. And so he didn't know what to do. Should he go up for this job? What if people found out he was ever looking at this? But it was a big job. And so I said to him, no, you got to go for this. And he says, I said, come over to my office. We'll talk about it. I'll give you some tips. And so we started to talk about it. And I'll tell you how to do it confidentially, and you go do it. And so he goes to the interview, wins the big job. It's just huge. And he's so excited. He comes back. I need to give you a gift. That's what he says to me. I said, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything. I just inspired you. And he go, no. It was that moment. It was that 5 minutes that changed it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done this. And he said, I need to give you a gift. I said, forget it. And he goes, I thought you'd say that. And he says, how about this? What if you and me and my dad and me would go play golf together? How about that as a gift? And I said, sure. And he says, can I bring a friend? I said, sure. And he says, I'm bringing Arnold Palmer. Come on. I said, you know Arnold Palmer? I said, that's like my dad's dream to do this. He says, I'm going to take you and your dad. We're going to go to Bay Hill. We're going to go play golf. We're going to have photographers the whole day. It's like their Monday, game. It's so much fun. I have so many stories that are so fantastic, because Arnold Palmer's like the king of sportsmanship. I mean, he takes care. He loves it when you hit a good shot. He goes, whoa. I mean, like he's just like high-fiving you. It's just unbelievable. And so we go and around the whole thing, and it's unbelievable. And we finish the round, and then we're sitting with Arnold Palmer and having lunch. And of course, we're having lunch with him. I mean, it's pretty good in this process. And of course, comes around to order, and he's ordering an Arnold Palmer drink. I think I'd like to have a Bob Beaudine, but then they bring me out mud or something, And so here's the thing that's so fantastic. Arnold Palmer says, I got to tell you a story. I said, sure. And he goes, I just developed a golf course in Saudi Arabia. Really? Wow. And he goes, yeah, it was fantastic. He said it really went well. The king loved it. We did a celebratory round at the end. And the king so loved the course. He was so overwhelmed that at the end, he says, I want to give you a gift, just like your friend did. And I said, what'd you say? And he says, I told him I charged him a lot of money for this golf course. And listen, I don't come here very often, and I'm excited. Thank you. No. And he says, and the king says, no, I want to give you a gift. And they went back, no, yes, until the king says, I'm giving you a gift. And he says, Bob, I blew the protocol. And, and then the king says to me, what do you want? What do you want? What would you say to a king? I mean, he's the richest man in the world. And so he says, he's thinking, how do I get out of this conversation? And he says, I collect golf clubs. And so he's flying home, and he says, he might get me an all gold driver. It might be gemmed with rubies and diamonds and emeralds. This is a true story. And he's thinking, this is so spectacular. And he's like pumped. And so he's waiting. And so 10 days go by, and he's at Bay Hill. He's got nothing. 13 days go by, nothing. On the 15th day, he gets a letter from the king. He says, Bob, I'm so bummed. I'm waiting for my box. Where's my box? I want to get out my gold driver. I'm going to show everybody. This is unbelievable. And he opens up the letter, and he starts reading, and it's a deeded trust for 495 acres of a golf club. He bought him an entire golf club. He was thinking golf club, and Arnie's thinking golf club. I mean, it's just too fantastical. And then Arnold Palmer says to me something I'll never forget. He says, so Bob, what are you thinking about about your life. I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, are you thinking golf club or golf club? And then he says, as a man thinketh, as a woman thinketh, so are you. Now listen, I don't know what your dreams are here today. I don't know your goals, but they're way too small. Your thoughts about yourself, way too limited. Your concept of the pandemic and everything, no, listen, we can help vulnerable people, unprotected people. We can make a difference for them. We can give money. We can hand out stuff. We could solve and do things. If nothing else, we could do it for our grandmas and our grandpas. We could help all our friends. We could be friends to actually our friends. You're a moment maker. You're a difference maker. You were created for that. There's nobody like you. And I want to tell you that don't let anyone steal that from you. You were created to do great and mighty things, not little things. And our heart knows it. And status quo for us is the reason you're all feeling stir crazy and bummed is because it's untenable for us, okay, to feel any other difference of that I should be making a bigger difference. And the answer is, so you just got to talk to God at 2 chairs and say, hey, so what can I do today? What do I do today? And then the doors start to open. You know, don't go to God and not expect him to be there because you're in for a shock. I mean, you better buckle up. I mean, and so, you know, most people, you know, I have people who are off the chart. And at the same time, I'm just saying, listen, I'm a normal person. I'm a dad, a grandpa. I'm a businessman. And I never expected and thought when my dad was on his deathbed, he told me I'd write 5 books. I laughed out loud. I said, I can't write a memo. And so I said, you're someone who does this. How would I do it? And so it's like the pictures that I have up here on my wall. I put up pictures on my wall to inspire me every day. Do you have that on yours? So I got a picture of Joe DiMaggio, and he's looking for the signal at 2 chairs. I have 2 chairs in my office. And he's looking. He said, are you looking today for the signal of what you're going to do? I got a picture of sitting over there with Nolan Ryan and Ventura, and he's about to beat the, you know, and so it always reminds me not to get in a conversation today where all of a sudden I do something foolish and get myself in something because I'm not supposed to be in those kind of conversations. Don't run at Nolan Ryan ever. and so I got a picture of like Gene Hackman, and he's handing out the ball over there. And so in this process, so the issue is that, you know, you got to make sure that you're ready to get the ball today. Because we're going to have 2 minutes of Scott Drew, and we're going to dive for balls, and we're going to do something great, and we can all do it. Listen, you all are really impressive. I'm really honored that you even took the time today to get on with me. And so, you know, everything to which it is. Time is really funny. I just believe that all the moments that we have are given back to us 100-fold that we've been out of our jobs, out of our high school, out of our friendships. And what you're going to find is you're rested. You know, sometimes you just get rested and you start to see what really matters most, and all the barking and biting that people do and all the stuff. We just don't have to get involved in that. I just don't have to get into that. And so I want to inspire you today that you're a big person in God's eyes. And so I'm expecting great things from you in the future. Stay in touch with me. Get online with me on LinkedIn or get on Facebook with me, and you know, just, you know, touch with me every once in a while, just talk. And anything you have questions later, just, you know, message me, tell me something. And so I bless you all today. Have a fantastic day.
Bob, thank you so much. Thank you so much from our group. Is just exciting. I did want to put up the 2 books that he has. Let me see if I can do this right. 2 Chairs and The Power of Who. Thank you, Bob. What a great friend you are to those of us who are associated with Ziglar, and to just these young people. Thank you so much.
Love you.